Loving your life, no matter what. This ancient secret will make you love your life, even if it's falling apart. I want to tell you a story that's going to sound absolutely insane. But I promise, it's real, and if you stick with me, it just might change your entire perspective on what it means to love your life, no matter what. A few years ago, a close friend of mine hit rock bottom. Not the kind of rock bottom you casually crawl out of. I'm talking about full-blown life collapse. He lost his job, his partner left him, and within weeks, he was sleeping in the back of his car, surviving on gas station sandwiches and shame. I remember sitting next to him. The car fogged up, the smell of desperation and coffee breath hanging between us. He looked at me and said, "I feel like my life has no value anymore. What's the point in loving a life like this?" I didn't have an answer that night, but that question, it never left me. What do you do when life doesn't look like the Instagram version you dreamed of? When it breaks you, betrays you, and dares you to love it anyway? This video is about answering that question. And the answer, it's hidden deep inside Stoicism, a philosophy over 2,000 years old, practiced by emperors, slaves, warriors, and now, us. We're about to journey through epic failures, intense emotional storms, and even quiet, unbearable boredom. We'll break down what it truly means to love your life, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours, and by the end of this video, you'll walk away with something rare, a quiet kind of power, the kind that can't be taken from you. But first, we have to start with pain. Because loving your life doesn't begin with happiness. It begins with heartbreak. Let's go back to that night with my friend. I couldn't say anything comforting because I knew it wouldn't land. Instead, I just asked him, "What if this was the beginning, not the end?" He scoffed. "The beginning of what? Misery? You think I should enjoy this?" "No," I said, "not enjoy, love." He thought I was mocking him, but I wasn't. See, the Stoics believed something shocking, that your life, as it is right now, is enough. Not when you get the job, not when your love life makes sense, not when your bank account is full, now. It sounds impossible, right? But let's test it, because this isn't some soft motivational fluff. This is a call to war, against the part of you that always waits for things to be different before you live fully. Let's hit the first Stoic bombshell. Epictetus said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things." Translation, your suffering isn't coming from your circumstances. It's coming from how you interpret them. Let that sink in. When you lose something, or someone, you don't hurt just because they're gone. You hurt because you've attached a belief to that loss. This shouldn't have happened. This is unfair. My life is worse now. But what if we flipped it? What if, as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, what if this moment you hate is actually the path to loving your life? 3 months after that car conversation, my friend had a breakdown in a public library. He'd started reading the Stoics out of desperation, and one day he read something that destroyed him, in the best way. He was reading Seneca, who said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." And suddenly, my friend realized something horrifying. He had spent years waiting to live. Waiting for money, waiting for love, waiting for permission. And all along, life had been happening right under his nose. He left the library and walked for 6 straight hours in the rain. No music, no phone, just raw, soaking reality. He called me later and said, "I think I'm okay now. Nothing's changed, but everything's changed." That's the paradox, isn't it? Loving your life doesn't mean loving every event. It means not needing things to change in order to feel alive. Let me ask you something. Right now, this second, can you name 3 things you're postponing your happiness for? Maybe it's a better job, a relationship, a number on the scale, a better version of yourself. Now let me hit you with a brutal Stoic truth. That future version of your life may never come. And even if it does, It might not make you feel how you expect. So what if this is it? What if the awkwardness, the frustration, the loneliness are not signs of failure, but signs you're alive? What if this version of life, flawed, chaotic, imperfect, is the only one that deserves your love? Because here's the twist. If you can love this moment, you'll be free. Nothing else will own you. Not success, not failure, not the future. Let me take you into the most stoic moment of my own life. Something I've never told anyone publicly. I was sitting alone in a hospital room after being told I might have a serious heart condition. The doctor left, and the silence hit me like a freight train. I looked at my hands, shaking. My mind raced through every mistake I'd made, every moment I'd wasted. And then, out of nowhere, I remembered something Marcus Aurelius said. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. I stopped, I breathed, and I felt this strange wave of peace wash over me. Not because I wasn't scared, but because finally, I understood. Life isn't something you wait to love. It's something you choose to love, right now, even when it's terrifying. Especially when it's terrifying. That night in the hospital, I made a decision. If this was the end, I wanted to die proud of how I faced it, with clarity, with grace, with love. And I've never lived the same since. So let me ask you, if your life never changed from today, could you love it anyway? Could you walk with your fears and still smile? Could you embrace your limits instead of hating them? Could you, like a stoic warrior, stand in the middle of chaos and say, "This is enough"? Because when you do, you become unstoppable. You stop chasing, you stop needing, you start living. And here's where it gets even crazier. When you love your life, no matter what, life starts loving you back. People notice, opportunities appear, not because life becomes easier, but because you've changed. You've become resilient, peaceful, magnetic. And all you had to do was stop resisting what is. So, what's the next step? Well, it's going to blow your mind, because we're about to dive into the most painful, powerful, and paradoxical lesson of all. Why losing everything might be the greatest gift of your life. I know what you're thinking. There's no way losing everything can be good. There's no way that heartbreak, that job loss, that betrayal, that failure, could possibly be a gift. And yet, here you are, watching this, listening, breathing, still standing. So maybe the real question isn't, why did this happen to me? Maybe the real question is, what if this happened for me? Let me tell you about someone who was born into slavery, lost his physical freedom, endured beatings, and still became one of the most powerful minds in human history, Epictetus. He had no wealth, no fame, no control over his early life, but instead of collapsing under his circumstances, he forged an inner strength no one could touch. He said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because the moment you stop needing life to look good, you can start living a life that is good. Now let's bring this down to earth. I once met a man at a silent retreat who had lost his wife, his house, and nearly his will to live in the same year. He looked like a ghost. But one morning, as the sun broke over the hill, he whispered to me, I think I'm freer now than I've ever been. How? I asked. He looked at me and smiled. This calm, unshakable smile, because everything I used to lean on is gone. And I'm still here, which means I was never any of those things. I was always more. Let me repeat that. I was always more. You are not your relationship status. You are not your career. You are not your losses. You are the awareness surviving those things. The willpower rebuilding from them. The spirit that refuses to die when life tries to bury you. The Stoics had a phrase for this, amor fati. It means, love of fate. Not acceptance, not tolerance, love. That means you don't just survive what happens. You embrace it, you kiss the chaos, you say, thank you, to the storm because the storm made you stronger. It sounds insane, but it's the only path to true freedom. Let me give you an image. Imagine your life as a sculpture. Every heartbreak, every failure, every loss is a hammer striking you. And it hurts. God, it hurts. But what if those hits aren't destroying you? What if they're shaping you into something magnificent? You're not being broken, you're being revealed. And here's where we level up. At the heart of Stoicism is the belief that everything can be used. Pain, a chance to grow. Betrayal, a chance to forgive. Failure, a chance to become wise. We don't get to control the raw materials of life, but we do control what we build with them. Marcus Aurelius faced constant war, betrayal from his closest allies, and the death of multiple children, and yet, he wrote nightly in his journal, "The universe is change, life is opinion." Translation: things will always fall apart, but what matters is the lens you choose to look through. That's why I want to ask you something wild. What if you needed to lose what you lost, to become who you're meant to be? Think about it. How many people stay in comfort zones that kill them slowly? How many dreams die quietly because we're too scared to let go of the life we think we're supposed to live? Sometimes, life doesn't take things away to punish you. Sometimes, it's saving you from settling. We think safety is the goal. But in Stoicism, virtue is the goal, excellence of character, strength, courage, wisdom, justice. You don't build those things in luxury. You build them in fire. I want to tell you a story that still haunts me. There was a woman who built her dream business from the ground up. 10 years of blood, sweat, and obsession. Then COVID hit, everything crumbled, her employees left, her savings drained, her identity gone. She told me, "I spent 6 months crying. Then I spent one morning screaming. And finally, I got quiet." That silence? That's where she discovered something terrifying and beautiful. She said, "I built that business to prove I mattered. And when it was gone, I had to learn how to matter without it." What followed was a rebirth, not of the business, but of her. She found a new calling, not driven by fear, but by truth. And now, she says losing everything was the only thing that ever gave her everything. Here's the Stoic lesson in that. What you think is the end of your life, might actually be the beginning of your real one. But only if you have the courage to face the wreckage and whisper, "Thank you." There's a scene I replay in my head often. It's a mental ritual I use every time something in my life shatters. I imagine myself standing in the middle of a burning city. Everything I once loved is turning to ash. My name, my success, my memories, gone. And then, I take one step forward, and then another, because I know something most people don't. The fire can't touch who I really am. And that's the point of all this. When you love your life no matter what, you realize you are not the life you lost. You are the soul that kept walking after it. This kind of love, it's not pretty, it's not poetic, it's ferocious. It doesn't need life to make sense. It doesn't wait for permission. It simply says, "I am here, I am enough, I am alive." So where do we go from here? We go to the one place most people never dare to look. We go into the quiet parts of life, the boredom, the loneliness, the in-between, and discover how to love those too. Because that's the final boss of Stoic love. And in the next segment, we're diving headfirst into the lesson that flips everything you think you know about meaning and happiness. The shocking power of boredom. Why the most ordinary moments hold the deepest joy. Let's be honest. Most people don't fear pain as much as they fear nothingness. The empty space between highs. The silence between applause. The ordinary Tuesday that doesn't go viral. But what if I told you that those moments, the boring, the quiet, the forgotten, are exactly where the deepest joy hides? Stoicism doesn't just prepare us for disaster. It trains us to fall in love with the mundane. Because when you can learn to love a day where nothing special happens, you unlock a superpower. You stop chasing drama. You stop needing constant validation. you start being free. Let me bring you into a moment I almost missed. A few years ago, I was sitting on a park bench, waiting for a friend who never showed up. I had no phone, no book, no distraction, just wind, trees, strangers walking past. And for the first 10 minutes, I hated it. I kept checking my watch. I kept scanning for something interesting. But then, something clicked. I noticed the exact rhythm of the leaves shaking in the breeze. I noticed a father tying his son's shoe, completely absorbed in that one small act of care. I noticed the texture of the bench beneath me, scratched, sun-worn, imperfect. I was fully here. No escape, no stimulation, no performance. And in that moment, I felt something unexpected, joy. Not the kind that makes you jump up and shout, but the kind that fills your chest like warm sunlight, the kind that whispers, "This is enough." Seneca said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." And that hit me like a punch in the soul. Because most of us aren't living, we're waiting. Waiting for the weekend, waiting for success, waiting for someone to finally see us. But real life? It's not waiting, it's passing you by, right now, in every breath, in every unremarkable moment you ignore. Let me ask you something vulnerable. When was the last time you just sat with yourself? No phone, no music, no scrolling, just you and the present. Most people run from that silence. Because in the silence, all your fears show up, all your regrets, all the doubts you've been distracting yourself from. But Stoicism teaches us not to run from those things. It teaches us to befriend them. To say, "Ah, there you are again, fear, I see you, let's sit together a while." Because only when you stop resisting the moment, do you start experiencing it. There's this incredible moment in Marcus Aurelius' journal where he writes, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul." He wrote that as an emperor, surrounded by war, politics, betrayal, and yet, he believed the deepest peace was not in power, but in presence. Here's something no one tells you. Boredom isn't the enemy. Boredom is the gateway to depth. It's what happens when your mind is detoxing from distraction, when your soul is trying to show you something real, something not bought or borrowed. But you have to be brave enough to sit still. The world today runs on overstimulation, fast dopamine, loud opinions, constant hustle. But Stoicism invites us to become anti-noise. To find our worth not in what happens to us, but in how we relate to it. That means your life doesn't have to be a movie scene to be meaningful. Washing the dishes can be an act of reverence. Sitting in traffic can be a meditation. Walking to the store can be a practice in awareness. Let me take you even deeper. There's a concept in Stoicism that most people overlook, eudaimonia. It doesn't mean happiness the way we think of it. It means flourishing, living in alignment with your highest self. And you don't need a mansion or a million followers to flourish. You need only this: to live with virtue in the moment you're in. Courage, wisdom, justice, self-control. These are your tools. Not likes, not luck, not legacy. And the more you practice this, the more you start to see life differently. You stop saying, "Why isn't this moment exciting?" You start saying, "What is this moment teaching me?" Because every moment has a lesson. Every second is sacred, if you treat it that way. The Stoics weren't just warriors in battle. They were warriors of attention. They knew how to find beauty in simplicity. How to savor the first sip of water after fasting. How to find peace in a single breath, perfectly taken. How to see the divine, not in fireworks, but in the quiet sunrise no one claps for. So let me challenge you. Tonight, before you go to bed, turn off everything, sit alone, and just be. Notice your thoughts, don't judge them, let them rise and fall. And ask yourself, can I love this moment? Not because it's spectacular, but because it's real? That's the final doorway into the Stoic's secret. When you love your life no matter what, you love it because it is yours. Because no one else gets to feel what you feel. No one else gets to live this exact story. And yes, there will be pain, there will be failure, there will be loss. But there will also be sunsets, laughter, surprising acts of kindness, little victories no one sees. And that, my friend, is enough. That is always enough. So now, we end where we began. You've seen heartbreak, you've seen loss, you've seen silence. And through it all, you've held on to something sacred, your power to choose. To choose presence over panic. To choose virtue over reaction. To choose love, even when it's hard. And maybe, just maybe, that's what life was trying to teach you all along. You don't need a perfect life to love it. You need this one. Yours. Exactly as it is. So now I leave you with one final challenge, and it's the most powerful one yet. Can you go one day without complaining, and fall in love with every single second instead? Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, and for the first time in your life, you make a silent vow. Today, I will not complain, not once, not about the traffic, the weather, the news, my past, my flaws, my pain, nothing. I will love this day as if I chose it. Now pause and really think. What would that actually feel like? No griping, no groaning, no silent curses under your breath, just full-on presence and radical acceptance. Sounds impossible, right? But let me tell you a story about the first time I tried this, and how it almost broke me. I made this vow after reading a passage from Epictetus. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. So I tried, one whole day, no complaints, not even in my head. And right away, life tested me. My coffee spilled, my plans changed, a person I trusted ghosted me. My anxiety started screaming for attention like a child throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. Every instinct in my body wanted to whine, to blame, to escape. But I didn't. I breathed. I watched the storm inside me rise and fall. And as I got quieter, the world got louder, more vivid, more alive. I saw details I'd ignored for years. The rhythm of a stranger's footsteps behind me, the texture of a cracked sidewalk, the way my chest rose and fell like a wave, anchoring me to the present. For the first time, I wasn't arguing with reality. I was loving it. Not because it was nice, but because it was real. And that's the Stoic secret no one wants to hear. You don't need things to get better in order to start loving your life. You just need to stop resisting what is. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And I think he was right. Most of our misery comes not from our circumstances, but from our stories about our circumstances. We think, this shouldn't be happening, they shouldn't treat me that way, I should be farther along by now. But all those shoulds, they're illusions. They distract us from what is. And the moment we let go of the story, we make space for love. Raw, unfiltered, unconditional love, for this moment, this breath, this life. So let me ask you the hardest question of all. What if nothing in your life needs to change for you to be happy? Would you still chase the dream? Would you still compare yourself to others? Would you still wait to give yourself permission to feel peace? Or would you finally stop running and say, "This is it, I'm here, I'm ready to love it all"? Here's a crazy challenge I gave to a friend once. He was drowning in bitterness, stuck in a loop of, "Why me?" questions. So I said, for the next 24 hours, I want you to pretend that every single thing that happens to you, good or bad, was custom designed for your growth. He laughed, then he said, "Okay, deal." That day, he lost a client, got a flat tire, and spilled lunch on his shirt before a big meeting. But instead of snapping, he smiled. He told me later, "It was the most peaceful day I've had in years. Because I didn't waste energy resisting anything. I just flowed with it, and somehow, it all made sense." That's amor fati, the love of fate. Not just acceptance, love. Loving what shows up, because it showed up. Even if it's hard, even if it hurts, even if it makes no sense yet. And the reason this works, the reason Stoicism is so powerful, is because it doesn't depend on external conditions. You don't need good news to feel joy. You don't need a raise to feel abundance. You don't need to be seen to know your worth. All you need is the courage to stop waiting. The courage to say, "This is my life, and I choose to love it, not someday, but now." I'll never forget a message I got from someone who watched one of my talks on this topic. He wrote, "I lost my leg in an accident. For a long time, I thought my life was over. But one day, I stopped fighting reality. I stopped asking, 'Why me?' and started asking, 'What now?' And that changed everything. Now, I mentor others. I found peace, not because I got my old life back, but because I learned to love my new one." That message wrecked me. Because that is what Stoicism looks like in real life. Not calm quotes over mountain backgrounds, but real people, facing real suffering, and still choosing to love. So what does that look like for you? Maybe it's holding space for your grief without letting it define you. Maybe it's waking up tomorrow and saying, "Thank you," before your feet hit the floor, even if nothing big is happening. Maybe it's going one whole day without blaming anyone or anything for how you feel. Not because you're passive, but because you're powerful enough to take ownership of your experience. Because here's the final truth I want to leave you with. Your life is yours. No one else gets to feel what you feel. No one else gets to write this story. So stop waiting for permission. Stop chasing a fantasy. Stop thinking you'll start loving your life later. Because later is not promised. But now is here, now is alive, now is enough. And if you can love this, right here, right now, there is nothing the world can do to shake you. You'll become untouchable. Because the person who can love their life no matter what, is the person who's truly free. So the next time you're stuck in traffic, or your plans fall apart, or you feel forgotten by the world, I want you to ask yourself, "Can I love this anyway?" And then do the unthinkable. Say yes. Breathe in the moment. And remember the Stoic truth that changes everything. You were never waiting for a better life. You were just waiting to see the beauty in the one you already have. And now that you do, you're unstoppable.